Really quick before I start the video, I want to apologize for how long this second part has taken to come out. I didn't mean for it to take 3 months for me to finish, but, you know, among the expected factors like school, work, and my own general overthinking, I guess, some important life stuff came up after I put out the first part, and it had to take full priority. And by important life stuff, I mean Pirate Yakuza came out, and it's really fun, and I played it for like a month straight. Seriously though, I am going to work on getting things out more consistently, mainly by cutting down on the scripting process, which is by far what takes the longest for me, and I'm also going to work on cutting the length of my videos in half, leaning more towards 20 minutes. I do still want to make some bigger multi-part videos, but the individual parts will be much shorter so they don't take half a decade to come out. But if you want slightly more consistent content from me, I do stream occasionally here on my channel, so go check those out if you're interested. That's all I wanted to say, so please enjoy Sujimon Part 2. After paying my respects to the ones we've lost, I went out to rebuild my team, catching a few Grounds Reapers to evolve Depression, and finally replacing Yukawa with a self-proclaimed witch. Because even in a game where all of the enemies are definitively male, they've gotta follow the Pokemon trend of having at least one that's overtly feminine. I wanted to give it a Sailor Moon-esque name, but I couldn't think of anything that sounded good and fit the character limit, so it's just Sailor. I also used a few of my tickets and immediately got Kiryu back, as well as a replacement for Karaki with a high necromancer I named Kim Jimble. And just to be safe, I did a bunch of extra fights just to get some decent replacements for my team. After what happened in the last gym, I wanted to be prepared for anything. Anyway, it's Fire Gym time, baby, led by Ace this time, who apparently used to be Morikasa's rival back in the day.
Because the references have yet to stop.
There is a pretty funny joke about how this gym is actually just a gym, like where people train their Sujimon for battles. It's another fun little jab at Pokemon tropes, but not one worth another rant from me like the Elite Four, so I'll move on. My team absolutely tore through Ace's students. Kiryu 2 and Revenge basically pulled all of the weight in these fights, and with a little help from Big Low, they didn't stand a chance. Ace, on the other hand, he wasn't as forgiving. Unlike the other Discreet 4 members, Ace's team isn't mainly focused on his gym's typing, or any typing for that matter. His team is a perfectly even mix of fire, grass, and light for whatever reason. His opening team is also pretty damn fast, and after only one attack from me, Ace already had Kiryu 2 one hit away from death. Revenge and Big Low weren't exactly helping with the speed issue, since both of them are extremely slow and use up so much SP. My team's general lack of speed meant Ace ended up killing Big Low and Sailor with an MP skill. My team was really struggling at this point, and I was convinced that at least one other person was going to die. But with Ace's remaining Sujimon being mostly light types, I rationed my SP strategically and managed to charge up enough MP to use Kim Jimble to wipe out the rest of Ace's team with Midnight Mischief. Are you fucking kidding me? Well, on the bright side at least, I only lost 3 Sujimon this time, which is an improvement. That means that I should only lose 2 Sujimon at the next gym, right? Yeah, that sounds right. After beating Ace, he explains why Morikasa was banished by the Suji League after they came into power, and that he wants to keep the original spirit of the Suji League alive as much as he can. Morikasa himself was apparently watching from the sidelines, and he and Ace have a nice conversation about their thoughts on how the league has changed over the years, after which, Ace decides that he'll help me train my Sujimon for the Dark-type gym. Sadachi refuses because of his pride as a teacher, but Karaki and Yukawa immediately agree to train under Ace, and honestly, dude, you can keep them. I don't really care about those two right now. Ace then warns me about Joker, the final member of the Discreet 4, and how he isn't afraid of using underhanded tactics to get an advantage, and as Sadachi and I leave, it's revealed that Joker may already be plotting something nefarious. Ooh. The recruiting process for the Dark-type gym wasn't any different from the previous 3, and I don't just want to repeat myself over and over, so instead, I'm gonna take this time to talk a bit more in depth about some of the Sujimon in this game. A little analysis of the freaks and weirdos you can bribe into fighting to the death, starting, funnily enough, with the 3 starters. Now, I'm gonna be honest, none of the first stage evolutions are really interesting, combat-wise or design-wise. Evolution in Sujimon, realistically, is just, you know, putting more clothes on, or less in some cases, so first stage Sujimon mostly just look bland in comparison to their later stages. My favorite of these 3, though, is probably Gangpunk, just because he looks the least like a normal guy, in my opinion. I don't really care all that much about the middle evolutions, and really, who does? But the final evolutions, dude, these are awesome as hell. And the names, too. Pandora's Boxer, Hemlock Dock, and Gang Lord. Love these guys, all 3 of them. I know Sailor didn't end up doing a whole lot, but I think the self-proclaimed witch evolution line is really creative since the whole thing is just a magical girl transformation. I don't really care about Sailor Moon or anime in general, but stuff like this is funny and I can't say I don't like it. And judging by other runs I've done in this game, Sparkle Juggernaut is actually pretty good in battle, shockingly so for being a healer. Squirmworm is one of my favorite Sujimon. He's a very obvious reference to Metapod from Pokemon, just without the metamorphosis when he evolves. The rest of his line stays in the sleeping bag, unfortunately, but I still like all of their designs. Also, his evolutions throw up lava for some reason, and yet they're all still grass type. The Beach Baller line is also really fun. These guys always stick out in my mind, but one evolution line that I fell in love with because of this Nuzlocke is Depression's line. Not only because they're actually pretty fucking strong, as you'll soon see, but the final evolution, despite not changing that much from Grounds Reaper, is such a whiplash-inducing change. I don't even think his name is a pun, he's just called Executioner. Probably my least favorite evolution line in the game is the Gains Chaser line. The final evolution is fine. I think it would have worked better as a middle evolution, but god, the first 2. I mean, they're literally the exact same apart from the pants. I genuinely forget which one is which all the time. My favorite evolution line in the game, though, is the Bronze Agent line. These guys are awesome. The whole statue street performer idea for an enemy is great, and the evolution from bronze to silver and then gold, it's obvious, yeah, but it works really well. I would have absolutely used one during my Nuzlocke if they didn't just suck ass in combat. These guys are tied with Big Low's line for the slowest Sujimon in the game, and like, I get it, they're literal statues, but you'd think they'd balance out how slow they are by making them super strong or tanky like Big Low, but they aren't good at those either, they're just really bad. There are a bunch of Sujimon who don't evolve, but honestly, they're pretty hit or miss most of the time. Like, I like Scarred Yakuza, Kiryu and Kiri 2 were really helpful during the run, but it's the same problem I have with first evolutions, it's just a dude. Bond Scientist and Invested Vagabond are also pretty meh as well, but then there's guys like Mod Goblin, Sewer Rat, Jetstream Samurai, nice reference, Death's Head, Nicotine Lich. These guys are all awesome looking. But what sucks about the Sujimon that don't evolve is that for most of them, their stats are really bad for some reason, and since they don't evolve, they can't really do anything about it. Bakken Alpha is one of my favorite Sujimon designs, but his stats are so painfully below average that I never use him. I haven't mentioned them yet, but this game does have some Sujimon that can equate to pseudo-legendaries. They can only be obtained from the gacha machines, and there are 2 for each type. And they're all kind of whatever. Combat-wise, they're all broken, but design-wise, again, it's hit or miss for me. A lot of them are based on other Sujimon, like Suji Machine and Suji Surfer. They don't look bad necessarily, but when you compare Suji Surfer to Jaws of Death, I don't think anyone would say he looks cooler. The ones that are completely unique designs, however, like Suji Fruit and Suji Delinquent, are pretty cool looking. I just wish they all had actual names instead of just Suji and then what they are. I like everything else about them though, especially the crowns and belts they all have. It's a great thing to unify them all without distracting from the rest of the design too much. The legendaries though, I'm just gonna be real, I don't really like any of these guys. Their naming scheme is somehow even worse than the pseudo-legendaries. They're all just Kiwami color, and I hate it. Design-wise, I mean, Kiwami Green is funny, I guess, and Kiwami Gold is the only one that I'd say has an actually good design with him being some kind of sun god, but the rest of them just look like they had random assets slapped onto them with no real care. And I'm sorry, the brightly colored and weirdly shiny skin just looks bad to me. Every time I see these guys, I don't feel like I'm playing Yakuza anymore. I feel like I'm watching a YouTube Kids video. I also feel like it's worth mentioning that not every Sujimon in the game is catchable. I get why some enemies aren't catchable, like bosses or the stilt clowns, and I also get wanting to stick with the more interesting designs rather than normal-looking businessmen or homeless people, but there's a lot of enemies that I feel like would have been great additions to the mode. For one, pretty much every Sujimon that's exclusive to Japan can't be caught since the Suji League is only in Hawaii. Yeah, we have the Japanese Master Gacha, but it only brings over 10 of them, and none of them get evolution lines. Which sucks, because Japan has a ton of awesome Sujimon that I would have loved to be able to use, like Urbane Legend, Massacre Mascot, Dark Sweeper, Invulnerable Board, Otaku at Arms, Welt Razor, and I can keep going. There are even enemies in Hawaii that aren't catchable, and I can't think of a good reason why. I find it insane that they put in both Sandbagger and Sewer Rat, who are literally the exact same model with a different hat, when they could have added Juggalo, Big Payback, Undertaker, Bohemiarch, as well as a bunch of other guys to give the single-stage Sujimon some evolution lines. I don't think they'll ever bring back the Sujimon League in future games, since aside from a few examples, they usually leave the major side content in the game it was made for, but if they do, I really hope they add in a good chunk of new Sujimon to spice things up. Anyway, going back to the Nuzlocke, Sadachi and I head back to Ace's gym and find out that Joker burst in and kidnapped Karaki and Yukawa. Again, like, you can keep them, dude. Out of fear for his students, Sadachi finally agrees to train under Ace, after which he achieves Murderous Heat, allowing him to transform into Super Sadachi, because this game refuses to let me live his death down! Murderous Heat is essentially just Mega Evolutions from Pokemon. Your Sujimon gets a major stat boost and sometimes even gets new moves, putting them on the same level as a Pseudo-Legendary. The only differences are that they don't get a new form, which kinda sucks, but they also stay in their super form forever, and you can have multiple of them at once. I do want to bring up one thing about Murderous Heat that I find a little odd, though. Ignoring Sadachi, each type has one Sujimon that can reach Murderous Heat, and what's nice about this is that each of the starter Sujimon represents their type's super form. Except for Hemlock Dock. The Grass-type super form goes to Executioner, which does make me love it that much more, but I mean, I guess they're also following the Pokemon trend of the grass starters sucking ass compared to the other two. Unfortunately, even though Sadachi gets his super form right now, I can't actually get any others until I beat Joker's gym, which sucks, but it is what it is. Before I head off to Joker's gym, Morikasa warns me that Joker used to be a Sujimon himself, once considered the strongest man in Hawaii. I think that's really cool, by the way. The idea that Joker was a Sujimon that climbed the ranks into becoming one of the greatest trainers there is. It's something you can really only do with a concept as stupid as Pokemon, but with men. So, here's what the team is looking like. We've still got Kiryu 2 and Kim Jimble, as well as Depression finally getting some time in the spotlight now that he's evolved, as well as 3 newcomers, with Nugget, the Moon and Nugget Messiah, another favorite Sujimon of mine, Roy Fire Emblem, the Heavenly Host, and Doc Lewis, the Championship Wrecker. So with my team all set, it's time to take on the final gym. We kick in the door, Sadachi acts like a fucking badass, god I miss him, and we start the first battle. So Joker's gym is a bit different from the previous 3. We're not just fighting 2 trainers this time. We're fighting 3 of them. But I have to battle all of them in a row without my team getting healed between fights. That may not sound like a big issue, especially since their teams aren't really that strong, but it does mean that I have to stay on top of healing my team more, especially in the final battle. I guess this gauntlet of sorts can also be considered a potential example of a gym challenge in this game. Actually, now that I think about it, the Water-type gym had you traverse through the beach and around a wall, the Dark-type gym has you fight a trainer gauntlet, even the Light-type gym forces you to fight Asakura beforehand. Ace, you gotta start brainstorming, dude. Make me do like 10,000 push-ups or something. The first battle was easy as hell. Doc Lewis soloed the whole thing, and they did nothing to us in return. And since my MP is also being carried over between fights, Kim Jimble was able to open the second battle with Midnight Mischief so Doc could clean up the stragglers. Aside from Kim, we were going to the third battle with an incredibly strong start. Thankfully, my team was just fast enough so I could get Kim out of the way, and Nugget healed himself and Kiryu to help them survive a Cyclo Swing from the other guy's Lone Wolf. Eventually, it was just down to 2 Sujimon, and my team was looking pretty good, but unfortunately, they were just fast enough to charge up and then use their Mod Goblin's MP skill, which ended up killing Roy, but Depression and Kim Jimble were able to get rid of him without any other casualties, thank God. Now, I didn't really care all that much about Roy, but this does mean that I'm short a Sujimon. It's no big deal, though. I've got a few in reserve. I'll just need to go back out real quick, go to the Suji spot right here in the gym to beef them up a bit, and we should be all good. Oh. Oh no. This posed a problem. I could still swap Roy out for someone else, but none of my other Sujimon were max level. All of them would get killed really easily. Dude, I had a Suji Sumo in there named Leonardo, who I didn't level up at all because I thought my current team would at least get through Joker's goons. The best option I had was Revenge, and he was 10 levels below everyone else. My only hope was to just shove him in the back and hope to God I wouldn't need to use him too much. Joker's team is fucking terrifying. His opening team isn't all that fast, but they hit like a bullet train with Pleatherface in the middle. Kiryu 2 managed to bait out Joker's Executioner so I could hit both the grass types with an MP skill, getting Pleatherface out of there and knocking Executioner and Boomstick Bannerit's health real low. I was doing well for now, but Joker positioned all of his fast guys in the back, so the more of his team I took down, the harder the fight was getting. And then he sent out Tank Commander.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Joker's Tank Commander is the Cynthia's Garchomp of Sujimon, except I'd argue it's even worse here, because at least Cynthia was the champion and Garchomp was a final stage pseudo-legendary. Neither of those factors apply here. Joker is a regular-ass gym leader, and Tank Commander is a regular-ass single-stage Sujimon. The name isn't a fucking joke either. He is tanky as hell. Look at Tank Commander's stats, dude. This thing has more health than fucking Suji Delinquent, and it's just as strong as him, too. The only thing that balances Tank Commander out is his 10 SP attack cost and terrible speed stat, but this guy was surrounded by some of the fastest motherfuckers in this entire game. Bone Cleaver basically cancels out Tank Commander's terrible speed all by himself, and it doesn't even matter that I killed the Slycanthrope, its speed stat still applies, making this thing faster than me! There was nothing I could do against this thing. All of my strong guys were too slow, all of my fast guys were too weak, and Revenge was dead the moment I forced him into this fight, 10 levels below what he should have been. And what sucks the most about this fight is that I almost killed it. I used Doc Lewis's MP skill as a last Hail Mary to hopefully squeeze out a win, and Tank Commander lived off of a sliver of health so tiny that you can't even see it. My entire team was killed, and the fight was over. Now, I didn't implement any kind of rule where wiping meant an instant loss for the Nuzlocke, but I might as well have at this point, because I was right back to square one. All of the Sujimon I poured all of my Sujimunch and committee agents into were gone, and I had very few viable replacements. I didn't want to go out and grind raids or farm tickets again, just to get a team even slightly close to the same power that my last team had. I meandered around a bit, did some sicko snap and crazy delivery to pass some time, and eventually started the painful grinding process that I was all too familiar with at this point. Honestly, I considered just throwing in the towel at this point. And then I remembered something that I completely forgot about when making my original Nuzlocke rules. Infinite Wealth has a few mini-bosses dotted all around the map called Keepers of the City. They have a fixed spawn location, and they're usually tougher than the basic guys you'll run into while walking around. But what's so important about these guys is that not only are most of them final stage Sujimon forms, but also most of them are catchable. In fact, pretty much all of them are catchable. So I immediately started hunting down as many of them as I could find, dashing across the entire map while searching every single alley I could. Sure, I was still technically grinding, but at least I wasn't fighting the same guys I have been for the past 16 hours. A lot of these guys were also way stronger than me too. I haven't been challenged by any of the street fights since the beginning of the run, so it was a great breath of fresh air to actually have some challenging fights outside of the Sujimon battles. Charlie once again ended up carrying me through basically all of these fights, like a true homie. I wasn't able to catch all of these guys since you aren't guaranteed a chance to catch them after a fight, but I was able to catch a good handful of them, and within a few hours I had caught Murdertron the Extermination Coon, Sharknado the Jaws of Death, and Garbage the Pleatherface because wow, that speed stat sucks. I even did more raids since I was feeling so much more pumped up, managing to get Depression back while also bringing on Dragon Ball the Clawmander and Disco Dan the Tropical Star. And with just a bit more Sujimon farming, I was able to level up some of my old Sujimon as well. I now had a good amount of options for who to put on my new team, and with a new focus on speed above all else to help me get more attacks in and hopefully build MP faster while still having a bit of power behind me, here's what I came up with. We've got Disco Dan, Depression 2, Blade Wolf, finally coming back after a long time of not being used, Murdertron, Dragon Ball, and Leonardo. This team was stacked to the teeth, and I knew that if this couldn't beat Joker, then nothing I could sort up would. So I ran back to Joker's gym, thankfully not needing to fight the trainer gauntlet again, and challenged Joker to a rematch. It started terribly, dude. Before Tank Commander even came out, Joker already killed half my team with his Slycanthrope, and by the time he actually came out, I was convinced it was already over. But for some inexplicable reason, I kept going. I managed to bait Joker into focusing on Blade Wolf with his Executioner, and since I was faster now, I could slowly chip away at Tank Commander with Dragon Ball in order to build up enough MP for Blade Wolf to finally take down the rest of his team with a glorious double Rising Slash. 10 Sujimon! I lost 10 Sujimon in this gym! Sadachi and I both run over to save Karaki and Yukawa, and Sadachi reverts back to his original form. But Joker isn't through with us yet. He's done with Sujimon battles. He's ready to throw down, starting an intense battle where... Okay, dude. After that frankly underwhelming fight, King walks in, congratulating me on beating the Discreet 4 and challenging me to the championship fight. Yeah, there's no grass-type gym. All the while, one of his bodyguards fucking shoots Joker out of nowhere! He diffuses the situation before they kill him, and as he starts to leave, Morikasa shows up. He asks King why he chooses to work for the committee, getting a less than satisfactory answer as King leaves. He explains that King was once one of his past students who loved Sujimon more than anyone else, and he can't understand why King would willingly work for the people who are ruining the sport. As we fade away, we see the committee ordering King to beat Ichiban at all costs, and if things go badly, he can shut down the entire stadium with a single button to end the fight without a winner, all to ensure their backers don't lose their bets on King if Ichiban wins. There's a passing remark about King's mother, clearly implying that she's being used as leverage in some way to get King to follow their orders. Seeing that he has no choice, King agrees to do as he's told. Anyway, I got a homeless guy from the gacha machine named Chewbacca. I'm just gonna skip the prep stuff again. No joke, I spent over 8 hours across 2 different streams to prep for the battle against King. Long story short, I fought a few raids, pulled a few gachas, caught a few keepers, I even ran into... I'm gonna be real, that was one of the most cathartic fights I've had in any video game ever. Oh, I can catch him? Cool. KYS, perfect. The only things of note that happened during all of this prep time was that 1, I was now able to evolve Depression 2 and Dragon Ball into their super forms. 2, I found out that you can actually get committee agents from the Japanese Master Gacha, so that was helpful. And 3, in that very same pull, this happened. Oh my god, I got Kiwami Gold? What the fuck? You can get the Kiwamis from the Japan Master Gacha? What? Holy shit! This is like the best light type in the game. This is one of the legendaries that you have to fight a level 60 enemy to get. Holy fuck. Okay, you're on the team. Kiwami Gold. Crazy. Okay. Oh my god, he's 220 speed? Oh, but he cancels out with a 10 SP. That makes sense. I genuinely had no idea that you could get the Kiwamis from any of the other gacha tiers. I thought they were exclusive to their own tier, but apparently not. Now I have How Even, the Kiwami Gold. I will happily take that after all the pain I've been going through. So going into the championship battle, here's the new team. We've got Dragon Ball, Depression 2, and Kiwami Gold, obviously. Hunk the Arminator, Professor Pig the Bone Cleaver, and Gengar the Weeping Archdemon. I swear to God, if this is a repeat of Joker's Gym, I'm going to punch my computer screen. This was probably the longest Sujimon battle in this entire run. Not because King's Sujimon were tanky, but because half of this fight is just me thinking out every single move I made, making sure I used my SP wisely, swapping out my Sujimon accordingly, and prioritizing healing with Dragon Ball and Kiwami Gold whenever I could. I really wish I had more to talk about when it comes to this fight, since it is the championship fight, but honestly, I've got nothing, for all the right reasons. I was at my absolute peak during this over 10-minute long fight. Things did get dicey with King's big endgame hunter nearly wiping out my front line, and King had a Suji machine on his team, which absolutely could have caused some issues, but I kept calm, played it safe, and I beat King with absolutely 0 deaths whatsoever. God, that feels so good to say again. As Ichiban and the gang celebrate the victory, King looks down at the button and throws it away, refusing to give in to the committee's demands. But the committee isn't through with us yet. They're done with Sujimon battles. They're ready to throw down. I'm getting deja vu right now. Well, this fight should be a piece of cake. I mean, Joker's fight was easy as hell, and you can fight King immediately after leaving Joker's gym, so oh my god. Oh, they're a higher level than me. Oh, this is bad. Stop! Ichiban! Huh. This might be a problem. I don't know why the Suji League committee agents are triple the level of Joker and his goons, but this fight almost seemed impossible. The only reason I was able to beat these guys was because they're weak to electric damage, so I tanked as much damage as I could with Kiryu, sent out Charlie to keep my team alive, and spammed the shit out of Kiwami Gold until they died. And now that the League has been restored to its former glory, there's still one thing left I have to do. The Stadium Challenges. 3 different categories, 9 different challenges, dozens of Sujimon to fight, and I'm skipping basically all of it in this script. Sorry, but this video is way too long right now, and I'm struggling to talk about the battles in an interesting way. Besides, my team was max level at this point, so basically all of these challenges were over before they started. Even the rematches against the Discrete 4 weren't an issue. Yeah, their teams were different, and they all had their type Super Sujimon, but I still got past all of them with everyone alive and well, probably because Joker didn't have Tank Commander this time. But with all the challenges done, Morikasa offers me one final challenge. The Divine League. 5 consecutive Sujimon battles against him and King, as well as 3 trainers with some of the strongest Sujimon in the entire game, including the Sujis and Kiwamis. Real quick, I need to point out something about these fights. In this last category of the Stadium Challenges, which this league and the rematches with the Discrete 4 are in, the battles are back-to-back, just like with the trainers in Joker's gym, but since these teams are all basically max level, your Sujimon do get their health back between fights, whereas in Joker's gym, they didn't. This does mean that if a Sujimon dies, they will come back in the next fight, and there isn't really a way around that, so for these fights, I've made the rule that if a Sujimon dies, you can still use them in the following fights, you just have to get rid of them once you finish the gauntlet. Anyway, I went out to make some quick preparations for the Divine League, adding on Murdertron 2, the Suji Machine, Omega Otaku, the Suji Cosplayer, and Captain Crunch, the Captain Cruncher, because you can't improve on perfection, let's be honest. And with those last additions, I started the final 5 battles standing between me and victory. The first trainer had an all-fire type team, so Captain Crunch pulled most of the weight here. Suji Machine and Suji Rider weren't too hard to manage, but to no one's surprise, Kiwami Red was another thing entirely. He killed Omega Otaku and Captain Crunch, but I had done enough damage to him by that point so that Kiwami Gold could finish the job. First fight, done! Next was an all-water type team, which Depression absolutely tore through. Only Dragon Ball died, but he kept Depression alive long enough to end the second fight strong. The Grass-type team wasn't nearly as forgiving, though. The other 2 saved their legendaries for last, but this guy sent out Kiwami Green instantly. Thankfully, Murdertron scared it away before it could do anything too crazy. Honestly, Suji Bear ended up doing more than Kiwami Green in this fight. I had no idea this guy hit as hard as he does. No joke, he killed absolutely everyone on my team until I was just left with Captain Crunch, which should have been the end for me since they were faster than me and had the type advantage. But for some cosmic reason that I'll never understand, this guy moved Suji Bear one space to the left, and since it wasn't a direct hit, I lived with just enough health to kill Suji Bear and keep moving on to the rematch with King. King's new team is really odd. His opening team was fast, but he didn't really have any power behind him outside of Captain Cruncher. I assume he was going for some kind of long game strategy since he did have 2 healers, but I killed both of them before they had a chance to do anything. And weirdest of all, he got rid of Suji Machine for some reason and replaced it with a normal-ass Extermination Coon, and I don't really get why. He ended up killing Depression, but everyone else was pretty okay. King really didn't end up being that interesting in this run. But with him out of the way, all that was left was the final battle against Professor Morikasa. So, it's around this time in a Pokemon Nuzlocke video where the Nuzlocker talks about the journey and how far they've come, and I'm gonna be honest, I always found those a bit cringe and unneeded, but I think I finally get why some of them do it. This run, for all of its problems, was an incredibly fun experience, and it made me fall in love even more with Sujimon as a whole. By the time I got to Morikasa's Japanese Sujimon exclusive team, every one of my Sujimon had already been killed in the previous battles at least once. I had flashbacks to the hours upon painful hours of grinding I had to do after losing to Joker, dreading the idea of having to do all of that again, but I steadied my nerves, looked Morikasa dead in the eye, and I played my ass off during this fight. And as I slowly worked away at his team, Morikasa finally sent out his last Sujimon, and of fucking course it was Sadachi. The first death of the run, arguably the most avoidable death of the run. I don't think I could come up with a better way to end off this Nuzlocke. And just like that, I successfully beat and created the first ever Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth Sujimon Nuzlocke. As far as I'm aware, anyway. And what an experience it was. This run was fucking terrible. There were so many issues with this entire Nuzlocke, and the further I got, the more prevalent they became. This is probably a contender for the most illegitimate Nuzlocke ever done. Hell, I didn't even mention the fact that I actually lost the Divine League at the first trainer because I brought Gengar instead of Captain Crunch, but I just restarted it anyway. I lied to all of you. This title is clickbait. I'm really not proud of how this Nuzlocke went, but ultimately, this run was irrelevant. Once again, I didn't really care all that much about this first run. I was just using it to find out what worked and what didn't when it came to my rules, and if you watched this far, Nothing really worked. But now that I have done this run, and have actually done some other runs in my own time, I think I finally figured out a rule set that's actually really good, at least to me. So sit down and take notes, because these are the official Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth Sujimon League Nuzlocke rules by Breadmannington. Version 2.4 and a half. Asterisk. The biggest changes that I'm making to the rules revolve around catching. Since I now know that the keepers of the city can be caught, I'm going back to the one catch per area of the map idea, no infinite catches like I was doing. Doesn't matter how you catch it, whether it be a keeper, raid spot, or some random guy on the street. If the game gives you the chance to catch something, that is what you have to catch and nothing else, not even other raid spots in that area. And because of this, I'm also adding the rule that you can't run away from a fight just to avoid the potential of catching something you don't want. If you do accidentally run into some random guys you don't want, you just have to hope they either aren't catchable or you get lucky and avoid the catch chance. Now this does bring up my original problem where there are only like 15 different parts of the map, and that is nowhere near enough Sujimon to carry you to the end, but that's actually where the gacha machines come in. Rather than limiting you to only one tier that you get to use as much as you want, I've instead gone for a system where after each gym, you get to do 20 pulls on either of the common gachas and 1 pull from the Japanese Master Gacha. I like this system far more, since it not only puts an actual limit on the thing, which I didn't have before, but it also makes it much easier to awaken and evolve your Sujimon since you'll have so many expendable guys. But my favorite part about these new gacha rules is that every single Sujimon is obtainable from the gacha machines, so it gives the run a bit of a randomizer feel, which I really enjoy. These new catching rules have resulted in much more varied teams for me across the runs I've done with it, and I've even gotten to use some Sujimon that I never paid any mind to. But since you will be getting so many Sujimon all at once, I'm just gonna say you only have to name the ones that you put on your team. I'm also adding team wiping, resulting in an instant loss, as well as moving the end of the Nuzlocke back to the fight with King. It's an historic? Is that a typo? There's a typo in this game? Nuzlocks do usually end at the champion, so I completely get if people just want to stop it there. But for those who want to keep it going to the stadium challenges, you can absolutely do that too. In fact, I'm adding quite a few optional rules for anyone who wants to make their run easier or harder. For example, Sujimancer. Again, I totally get if people don't want to focus on the street fights during the Nuzlocke, and if that's the case, there really is no reason to force you to get Sujimancer. But for those who do want that extra challenge, I think it's a nice rule to still have available. Probably the biggest optional rule that I'm adding is New Game Plus, which was an addition that I was very hesitant about, but the more I've played with it, the more I love it. I've realized that my biggest issues with New Game Plus can either be easily avoided or aren't too big of a problem for me to care enough about. All you need to do is just dump all of your old Sujimon from your last save in the trash and make sure you don't surpass the gym level caps before going there. They're all just increments of 10, so it shouldn't be an issue to keep track of them. Just be careful when using Sujimon because you can get an extra EXP boost which could accidentally throw you over the level cap. The only major issue with New Game Plus is that the levels of your old Sujimon do carry over, and since you can't throw away Sadachi and his students, if you've leveled them up at all or made Sadachi super, I'm just gonna say you can't use them. There really isn't any way around any of that apart from just redoing the entire game on a fresh save file, which I doubt a lot of people are going to want to do when you can very easily replace them with the new catching rules. In terms of the positives, if you don't want to worry about the street fights and just want to focus on the Sujimon battles, this is for you, and one of my favorite aspects of New Game Plus is that you don't have to beat Joker in order to gain access to Super Sujimon. You can get them at any point during the run, which is so nice to have. However, with New Game Plus being an option, I am going to have to outright ban the Kiwami gacha since you'll be able to get the Kiwamis very easily. There is the whole issue with New Game Plus costing money, which is a long-ass story and everyone agrees it was a terrible decision, but that's another reason as to why it's an optional rule since not everyone will have access to it. And for the final optional rule, and possibly the most controversial, if you have the Sujimon and Resort Bundle DLC, which comes with the DLC Sujimon I mentioned earlier in the video, they're still banned, and so are the free committee agents you get, but I'll allow you to use the free Sujimunch included in the DLC since, as far as I'm aware, no one has found a way to hack in infinite Sujimunch into the game yet. I know the use of EXP candies is a major topic of debate in the Pokemon Nuzlocking sphere. I'm gonna be honest, dude, I don't really care. If you want to skip the grinding, I completely understand. This first run took me over 30 hours to beat. I have a life to live, man. But yeah, those are the new rules, and I'm very happy with them. Like I said, I've done multiple runs with these new rules in my own time, and maybe I'm biased, but I think they're pretty solid. If you have infinite wealth, I 100% recommend trying this out, especially if you love Sujimon as much as I do. This side mode has reignited my interest in creature collectors, and to be honest, as much as I've voiced my disinterest in Pokemon throughout this video, I'm kinda looking forward to Legends ZA, not gonna lie. Anyway, I need to find something to drown out Sujimon from my thoughts. I did these streams back in September, and I'm only just now finally getting the video done. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and get ready for much shorter stuff in the future, because this took way too fucking long.